Last night's debate in Detroit put the Democratic Party's ideological divide front and center for the country to see. Centrist candidates argued that proposals from left-wing Democrats go too far, playing into Republicans' hands. But these progressives, including Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, defended their visions. Here's Ed O'Keefe.
This is an example of wish list economics.
You can't just spring a plan on the world and expect it to succeed.
Moderate Democrats desperate for attention came out swinging early, knowing this might be their only chance to challenge the liberal views of Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
So I think Democrats win when we run on real solutions, not impossible promises. When we run on things that are workable, not fairy tale economics.
But the two senators anticipated the attacks and hit back.
You know, I don't understand why anybody goes to all the trouble of running for president of the United States just to talk about what we really can't do and shouldn't fight for.
Medicare for All is comprehensive. It covers all health care needs for senior citizens. It will finally include dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses.
But you don't know.
Second of all,
you don't know that,
second
Bernie.
of all,
We'll come to you in a second,
I do know, and I wrote the damn bill.
Why do we got to be the party of taking something away from people?
No one is the party.
That's what they're running on. They're running on telling half the country that your health insurance is illegal. It says it right in the bill.
Let's be clear about this. We are the Democrats. We are not about trying to take away health care from anyone. That's what the Republicans are trying to do.
The other Democrats on stage also stopped short of Sanders and Warren's calls for decriminalization of border crossers.
If you want to come into the country, you should at least ring the doorbell.
We got 100,000 people showing up at the border right now. If we decriminalize entry, if we get health care to everyone, we'll have multiples of that.
And continued to debate whether the government should be paying college tuition.
My problem with some of these plans is they literally would pay for wealthy kids, for Wall Street kids to go to college.
We can have debt-free college for low and middle-income students by expanding Pell Grants and compelling states to pick up more of the burden.
The best thing you could do to stimulate the U.S. economy is to get rid of this debt.
But all agreed on the need to defeat President Trump.
Trump is a pathological liar. I tell the truth.
Ultimately, we have to beat Donald Trump.
Anyone on this stage tonight or tomorrow night would be a far better president.
CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns is in Detroit, and Lynda Tran is here with me in New York. Lynda is a CBSN political contributor, Democratic strategist, and founding partner at 270 Strategies, which works with the DNC on the 2020 election. Thank you both for being here. Caitlin, wanted to start with you. Many were looking to last night's debate for differences between Sanders and Warren, but do you think that these longtime friends had a different plan in mind?
Yeah, they were certainly portraying a united front against some of the more moderate members of their party. I talked to Bernie Sanders' campaign manager yesterday before the debate, and I asked if he was going to go after Warren, if there was any plan for him to draw some contrast with her, since she has been kind of eating into Bernie Sanders' numbers. And they said no, that is not part of the strategy, that they're longtime friends, and they want to portray a united front on these issues that they both care deeply about. He said further down the line, as the field starts to narrow, they might change their approach and try to kind of establish Bernie Sanders as the leader on those ideas. But last night we saw them kind of together defending one another, particularly as it pertained to Medicare for All, the proposal that they both support, kind of going against the more moderate forces of the party.
And I see Lynda here shaking her head. What did last night's debate tell you about the current state of the future of the Democratic Party?
Well, you know, to a certain extent, the more things change, the more things stay the same. I mean, we've always said that the Democratic Party is a big tent party, and we saw that on vivid display last night. You had the progressives on the one end of the spectrum, you had the moderates on the other, and then you had Mayor Pete and Beto somewhere in the middle, kind of bridging the divide. What is remarkable, and what Caitlin has been talking about in all of the coverage for the last many hours since the debates last night, is that it is remarkable to see how much the debate has shifted, the conversation has shifted. That said, the pockets of folks, I think, have been, you know, part of the Democratic Party for quite a long time.
Do you think that the two of them are looking so far ahead to maybe be number one and number two eventually, as far as Warren and Sanders are concerned?
Well, I mean, knowing that they are such close friends and that they have this long-standing history, I'm sure they would be thrilled if they were number one and number two and kind of leading the charge heading into 2020. I think the likelihood is that as we make the pivot into the general and voters donors get more and more involved, they both have certainly high potential there, but it's probably likely it'll be a different blend.
Caitlin, I wanted to play a clip from your spin room interview with Montana Governor Steve Bullock last night. Let's go ahead and listen to this, Caitlin.
In Michigan, we're having this conversation about whether Democrats feel they need a candidate who can inspire and turn out the base in places that Trump won, or if they need a candidate who's a little more centrist, a little more moderate. I can imagine where you sit on this, but where do you think the debate is going in the party right now?
Yeah, in many ways, I think I'm a progressive if what we're looking at is progress. I mean, we've passed the best laws when it comes to kicking dark money out of our elections. We have the 4th lowest tuition fees in the nation because we've frozen college tuition. We've taken so many steps, but I think it's a false choice. We need to be able to do both, but recognize that if we can't win back places we lost, the Michigans, the Wisconsins, the Pennsylvanias, we're not going to win this election. I'm the only one in the field that's actually won a Trump state.
So I wanted to shift this question over to Lynda. Do you feel like that answer is similar to what we heard Bernie Sanders say last night?
Well, I mean, Steve Bullock is clearly trying to carve out his own space, right? For many people around the country, they were like, who is this guy as he walked in? So it was really his introduction to the world. He was clearly trying to deliver a couple of messages. Number one, I'm the only guy who has won in a state that Donald Trump won statewide. So winnability being, top of mind for so many Democratic voters across the country, that's a pretty salient and persuasive message. But secondly, just trying to figure out, what can we do versus, should this be a revolution when it comes to the various policies that the members of the Democratic field have put forth. He's trying to carve out his lane with people who are much more middle of the road.
And let's talk about a topic that was mentioned, that wasn't mentioned in Ed's piece, which is climate change. And I found it very interesting that at a lot of the polling sites and things that we've been seeing online, climate change is really important, but it didn't happen until an hour and change into the debate. Do you think it should have been more top bill?
Well, I mean, I think that we're going to hear a lot more about climate change as the cycle moves forward. There's been some discussion about whether or not some groups within the movement are going to really be driving focus towards larger and larger forums that engage the candidates around those issues. We did hear about climate change last night from Pete Buttigieg, from his intro to his conclusion, and that was clearly a very smart move, right? He's speaking to a younger electorate potentially that certainly is on brand with who he is as an individual. And we also know that there are going to be a number of protests that are going to be basically led by students come September and come October around some of these larger UN convenings and the like. I think we haven't heard the end of climate change. Elizabeth Warren also showed that she's trying to connect it to the economy and the impact on workers and the future for workers. So that could be another avenue for the discussion moving forward.
And so turning to tonight's debate, 10 more candidates, including current polling leader, we can't not mention Mr. Joe Biden. Also, we've got Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Bill de Blasio. What are you expecting from tonight?
I think that the stakes are different for each of them, and the goals for each of them are also different. For Joe Biden, most people in the country, they know who he is. They're familiar with his time and his connection with Barack Obama. And some may have been concerned about what they might have thought was a rather lackluster first round of debates for him. So what they're looking for is fire in the belly, the notion that he can go toe-to-toe with folks, because that also sets up what their impressions are about whether he can go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump. For everybody else, they're probably looking for a viral moment that allows them to continue to drive up the number of donors they have, drive up the resources that they have heading into the fall. And for some of them, the odds of that are higher than others.
And last night's debate only featured white candidates. It was due to CNN's random kind of sorting process and getting everyone together. Do you think tonight race will be more of a topic?
I think tonight race will continue to be a topic. I don't know if it'll be a higher level or a lower level, but we do know that Joe Biden is going to be center stage with Kamala Harris on one side of him and Cory Booker on the other. And both of those candidates have shown that they are ready, willing, and anxious to engage with Joe Biden on his record of his connection to those issues.
Yeah, sure. Interesting that you said that. Do you think that they will kind of turn and gang up on Biden? Is that the target for tonight?
Well, I think that Joe Biden is very likely to be the target for everyone, not just for Kamala and for Cory, but for everyone. I mean, he's the front runner. Clearly, Kamala showcased that if you get in a couple of good punches, it could make a difference in both your standing and the support that you're getting online and in terms of cash.
And we've been hearing President Trump weigh in as well on the debate. What's your take on his take on how it all went?
You know, ironically, when Donald Trump weighs in and throws bombs at individual members of the Democratic field, it helps those folks because it conveys that they're top of mind for him, that they're somehow potentially a threat. And I think that if we took a deep dive into their numbers, you would see that anytime President Trump tweets something at them, it actually drives up interest.
Interesting. Caitlin Huey-Burns is out there as well. Thank you so much. Lynda Tran, we appreciate it.